Good day, folks, and welcome to another edition of Lumberjack Logic Live. I'm your host, Neil Johnson. Excited to be with you. So excited to share this news with you because we're always asking, when is justice coming? We want indictments. We want arrests. Everything that we went through, everything that, the Trump administration had gone through from 2016 on, but really it started hitting us hard in 2020, the populists, and that was through the jab, the COVID edicts, the election issues. I mean, just all of it, censorship, government totalitarianism. We were on a full bent right on the cliff there. And now we're starting to see some big things popping. And one of the big states that we really wanted to see some things pop out of was Michigan. And so I have a special guest joining the stream today. He is a former member of the Michigan State Senate and has been working on the election integrity issue out there big time. But we're really looking like we've got indictments coming in. We also have the State House was just cleared to actually bring people in. What's the word I'm looking for? Actually, I'm going to bring my guest in real quick. What's the word I'm looking for, Patrick?
Enforce the subpoenas.
Thank you, subpoenas. Yeah. That's the word I'm looking for, subpoenas. But folks, before I get into it really quickly, do smash that like, do chat in with where you're from, and you can get your free info kit on gold by texting the word lumberjack to 989-898. Again, that's lumberjack to 989-898. That's for Birch Gold. No obligation, just useful information. But I am very happy with both my gold and my silver, which you get both there. Okay, you can buy it to hold. You can convert existing IRA or 401k dollars into physical gold and silver. Gold is up over 40% in the last year. In the last 6 months, it's up over 20%. It's been one of the best performing asset classes out there. So anyways, make your own investment decisions. But central banks are buying it up. They are on a gold buying binge. So do what you want. But smart money seems to be on gold right now. So Patrick, golly, we got stuff shaking in Michigan, man. So I'm kind of excited. I mean, this is really two things that we're covering today, two things that are breaking. I mean, we have the subpoenas, and then we have what's going on with Jocelyn Benson's department. So I'm going to let you kind of just break it down for everybody. You're there in Michigan. You've been working on this stuff. So
Yeah, I know I'm not the only one that's anxious to finally see some people in orange jumpsuits, or at least go through a trial to get them into an orange jumpsuit. So that's what we're all anxious for. And what we're seeing now is that, in the wake of some high profile statements out in the Trump administration, where we've got the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, highlighting the ingredients of this grand conspiracy. All of a sudden, all these concerns that we had around election integrity are starting to get to be within the Overton window finally. And it's been a long, painful struggle, but you're seeing, I trust me, I'd rather be doing something else with my life than investigating elections. And so we got, as you framed it, we got two key developments that happened recently. Number one is that we caught Michigan Bureau of Elections Director Jonathan Brader in a perjurous statement. So he committed perjury, and this is important because Jonathan Brader, on behalf of Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, has effectively been bullying clerks. And I've seen a lot of the letters that they've been sending to our clerks, asserting things as if they're law, which are not law. And it's been very frustrating. But now we actually have him on the record under oath before court in two different circumstances where he had submitted contradictory statements. So the first example is before a grand jury seeking indictments against attorney Stephanie Lambert and her client, Adams Township, or former Adams Township clerk Stephanie Scott. He attested to the fact that he had the authority to go off and enforce Michigan election law. And part of that was his directives that said no third party could look at these electronic voting systems without a court order or without it being an approved testing lab like VSTL or SLI, and ProBNB or SLI. And so and then fast forward to his testimony before Hillsdale County, where we're actually in the trial featuring Stephanie Scott, the former clerk of Adams Township. And when the actual statutes were brought in front of him, he admitted that there are no provisions in law that prohibit a third party from looking at the machines. And so he got caught in a big whoopsie lie, and really it just highlights that they were attempting to bully clerks into submission, kind of fake it till you make it, and he got caught. And this goes all the way up to his boss, Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson.
So I think, and ultimately, this is going to implicate everybody up there, I believe, in the executive branch in Michigan. That's my own personal take on this. But I remember when Michigan inflated their voter rolls prior to the election. That was a story not well covered by the mainstream media. No. But I'm going to start. Here, let me just go. I'm going to pull in the Joe Hoff piece really quickly. Okay. I think just to give us a quick breakdown on this. So if you guys want to follow along too, Joe Hoff has this up on his website, but imminent announcement of indictments expected in Michigan related to elections. So this is, as you're referring to, Jonathan Brader, the Michigan Director of Elections under Jocelyn Benson, confessed to federal crimes under oath last week. Okay, we'll reference, we've got the videos, you sent those over. Those are both on Matthew DePerno's X feed. But this is serious accusation, but it's not surprising. Brader has a record of suspect and reportedly illegal activities. This is where it gets interesting. Brader, through the Michigan Bureau of Elections, inflated the Michigan voter roll by 700,000. That's 10% of the eligible voting population just weeks before the 2020 election. Now, this is interesting to me as I'm reading this, Patrick, because I always thought that number was just over 500,000, but it was actually 700,000. So I was always utilizing the wrong number.
Well, actually, Secretary of State Ruth Johnson, she was the Secretary of State before Benson, said in a letter to her colleagues that it was more like 800,000. So don't worry. The numbers are kind of all over the map. But the bottom line is that's a heck of a lot more than the 154,188 vote margin in the 2020 election for president.
Yes. Now, if we go down here, immediately following the 2020 election, Brader ordered the electronic poll book data to be destroyed by all clerks in violation of Federal Law 52 USC 2701.
Yep.
Here it is. This is from February 12, 2021 to the county clerks. Now, one of the county clerks refused to do this.
Oh, a lot of them did. Yeah, it's a lot of them haven't been public about it. We've got groups like the Locus Standi group that have been collecting the actual poll book data from all across the state. So we've got it from clerks that didn't want to violate the law. So there are some good meddling kids out there that do know what the law is and refuse to get bullied by the Michigan Secretary of State.
Yeah, so this is going on. Now, what's wild is
Neil, if I could, this is why this is so important. By deleting these poll book records, what Benson's trying to do with Brader is eliminate the audit trail.
Yes.
They're trying to get rid of the actual information that determines who actually got ballots during the elections. This is actually at the ground truth. This is the poll workers making their entries, identifying that, hey, Neil Johnson, you showed up to vote in person. I'm going to give you a ballot, and all that stuff is journaled inside the poll book. That's what they're trying to get rid of. And when you get rid of that, guess what happens? The only source of data as to who voted and who didn't vote is owned by the Secretary of State with the qualified voter file. And what we've shown is that they're changing the records, the voting history records in the qualified voter file every single month, and it should never change after an election. So there's some shady business going on, and what they're trying to do is this is all a big cleanup operation where they're trying to eliminate the audit trail.
Yes, and what I find interesting about this too is it relates to Michigan. And maybe I've told you this before, but I actually went on the Michigan Secretary of State's website a day or two after the election. And when I did that, I looked up 5 dead people who had voted. No, and these were dead people. I mean, like literally they were 100 plus years old. Some of them died in the 1980s. One entry was so sloppy, Patrick, that they said the person voted on October 31st, but ordered their ballot on November 1st. Yeah. This is how this is completely straight up. I'm like looking through it. I think I even did it on a live stream while I was looking it up. I said, look, you can look this stuff up too, because I saw another guy who was doing it and said, go try this. And so I did. And I'm like, after 5, I'm like, really? I mean, this is all
we had a Civil War veteran who voted during the 2020 election, Jason Lemoyne Daniel. If you go to
the last one of those died in like 1960 something.
This guy really was dedicated to his political voice. So
I've got a shirt that says, when I die, don't let me vote Democrat.
Yeah. There's been no explanation for that today. No. And so this ties into the subpoena request, which is the next thing. But I just give I don't want to jump ahead of the.
Real quickly, too. Immortal Legend says, to avoid this, people need to get involved with their precinct central committee and board of elections. This is all true. We need more involvement at the local level.
Yeah.
It's just a real thing. Let me
transparency, though. I mean, so they locked down and threatened the same thing that this Brader guy was doing to the clerks. They used to threaten poll workers into submission and not sharing information and not being transparent about what's going on. And so until you stop these guys from their bullying activities and you promote transparency, you're still going to have these issues.
Yeah. I want to. Do you want me to show these people the video clips that you were referencing?
This is important from the standpoint of, guys, this is a pattern, right? This isn't just a one-off where he's going off and issuing unlawful directives to the clerk regarding access to electronic voting systems that he used to indict Stephanie Lambert and Stephanie Scott. This is a pattern. We've had 7 separate courts in Michigan, and one of those is a federal court, that have determined that Jocelyn Benson and her buddy Jonathan Brader have issued unlawful directives to the clerks. So we're conducting unlawful elections as a matter of fact in the state of Michigan. So in the wake of that, we regained control of the Michigan House, and they gave subpoena authority, and so they're asking for training materials to make sure that they're compliant with the law. I know we're going to get into that later, but part of the setup into this video is that, you know, we've got the attorney for the Michigan Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, actually attesting to the fact that this isn't just a oopsies when she's issuing unlawful directives. She's done this consciously and proactively, saying she's only going to support the laws that she agrees with, and any laws you don't agree with her on, she's going to sue you. She just encourages you to go off and sue her. Well, I don't know about you, Neil, but I don't have a lot of money sitting around in the bank account teed up to go off and pay a bunch of lawyers every time my Secretary of State violates her oath of office. And that's essentially what she's trying to do. So that's the background for that video clip. It's really highlighting the complete contempt for the rule of law. And I'm thankful we've got some impeachment articles that have been filed in the Michigan House and against Jocelyn Benson. I hope to see them activated. But that's the background on this. So if you want to play the clip, this isn't just me saying it. Listen in her own words.
Are we doing clip 1 or clip 2 first?
Oh, clip 1 and clip 2 are related to the
we're going to Rumble here for this.
Yeah, for Rumble. Yeah, the Rumble one is separate. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, folks, we're going to watch this clip. I do want to, Patrick, before we watch this clip, though, something I asked you when I called you initially, because everybody out there is so frustrated, right? I mean, you know, you look back, this has been years now, right? We saw this. We saw them inflating the voter rolls before the election. Then we saw lawsuits brought, and then we were told those were dismissed on, I think at that time it was latches, and it was standing afterwards.
Yep.
So we had all these dismissals. So everybody's wondering, well, is there really going to be justice? Now we're dealing with a different Justice Department now. So I want you to address that to the audience. Say, okay, what's going on with attorneys behind the scenes? Are we actually going to see these indictments?
Well, first of all, in this case that we're talking about, this is Stephanie Lambert, attorney Stephanie Lambert, that they went off and indicted for helping her client, who's a clerk, get her arms around what's actually going on in her own election. So she was perfectly within her rights to go off and do that. And Stephanie Lambert is also the attorney for Patrick Byrne, who was in a lawsuit. He got sued by Dominion for some of his statements regarding the election. And in that course, she actually got access to a lot of sensitive information. Suffice to say, Stephanie Lambert's a pit bull, and she's tired of being lied to. She's tired of being bullied, and she is connected now with senior levels of the Department of Justice and also significant lawyers. You'll notice that in the Hillsdale County case that was defending Stephanie Scott, the attorney was Kurt Olson. Kurt Olson is a good friend of mine. He's a former JAG lawyer, former Navy SEAL. He is very good and very connected with the folks up in DC. So he's essentially a good guy's version of Mark Elias. And the fact that he's engaged means that we've got connections and avenues available that we didn't have back when Biden had the keys to the White House. So that's very good news. And the state path, by the way, is horrible. I mean, we got a Michigan Supreme Court that's essentially bought and paid for. We've got Jocelyn Benson. We've got a case where she actually gave an $82,500 bribe to the Michigan Supreme Court Justice, Kyra Bolden. And coincidentally, a couple months after she received that donation, Bolden issued the majority opinion in Benson's favor after Benson had been struck down by all the lower courts unanimously. So that reeks of bribery to me. So that's what we're dealing with at the state level. But the Fed level, we got some friends up there. There are some good people in the Department of Justice, and I'm encouraged by what I've seen. And I'm not just saying this. I'm naturally a half full glass kind of guy. I wouldn't be at this for 5 years like this if I wasn't a half full glass guy. But I'm seeing quite a bit of movement behind the scenes. So please, you guys, we couldn't come out right away with these indictments because we still had corrupt judges in there. We had to isolate who the corrupt judges were. We still had the Department of Justice was probably one of the most corrupt organizations we had in the federal government. Yes. They had the clean house there. Same thing at the FBI. I'm not saying it's squeaky clean right now, but but when you hear the president go off and highlight that maybe it's time to issue a special prosecutor regarding the election, now you start seeing that they're kind of sending smoke signals that things are starting to clean up so that they're ready to get into some forward momentum again. So I'm encouraged.
Yeah, well, and I think it's important to mention that. And I mean, look, the Department of Justice is so vastly improved right now. It's not even funny. I mean, we are dealing with a completely different game. But here's that clip. We'll play this quick, and then we'll play these other ones as well.
There's one simple vision hack anyone can use to improve vision.
Hack. We're going to get rid of the simple vision hack.
Stop scrolling.
And so now we're going to have another dumb.
That helps us see the fraud better. That's all.
So I don't think we would want to create a war between the branches. And if there wasn't something telling us to do something, and we thought it was okay, we would probably do it. But if it really came to push, this is, conflicts with the Constitution, or this isn't something that we can really do because we couldn't really control it, or it's a bad idea, we might just choose not to do it. Right? You could leave that statute sitting there, and we would continue to issue instructions and give guidance, and somebody would probably sue us.
What do you perceive?
Wow.
I mean, it doesn't get too much clearer than that, right? That's complete hubris.
That is unreal. Okay, I didn't even have a chance to watch that clip as you were sending stuff over, because I cut over later. Would you set that statute aside, offer some guidance, and then people will just sue us?
Yeah, if that's not grounds for impeachment, I don't know what is.
Honestly, what the hell was that? What did I just see? The Constitution, we've just shredded it and we're using it as toilet paper now? That's
what she said. That's what she did. Coincidentally, she lost that case 3-0 in the Michigan Court of Appeals. That was a Halloran v. Benson where that happened. And then that was the case that the Secretary of State subsequently appealed to the Michigan Supreme Court. And after she appealed it, that's when she issued her nice little $82,500 donation to one of the Supreme Court justices who was just so happened to be running for election that year. So it just stinks to high heaven, and the complete hubris of it all is something that people need to see to believe.
That was wild. I mean, I'm still kind of a little bit in shock of that clip there, Patrick. That was next level.
Yeah, that had an impact during my testimony back on the 15th before the Michigan House Election Integrity Committee, because a lot of the insiders inside of Lansing never heard that testimony. I mean, I've shared it all across the state. I've shared it all across the country whenever I go off and talk to people, but it's amazing how insulated these guys are in the halls of Lansing from hearing this stuff. And that's why I thank you for helping to get the word out on this. This is what we're dealing with.
Well, I mean, I can't believe how many, I'll be perfectly frank, Patrick, I can't believe how many people have moved on from it at this point.
Yeah.
I'm really in shock. I mean, this is like, I mean, people that I know who were talking about this back in 2020, was it because it was just a profitable enterprise then, and now they're just like done with it? I don't know, but I'm just, this is not, if we do not see justice for these crimes, what do we have? I don't know. Yeah.
You have just remember, take heart. I know it's slow coming to fruition, but there is no statute of limitations for treason.
Yes. Well, here's the other clips you sent me. We got Matthew DePerno, clip 1. This is Jonathan Brader. So
let's frame this. Yeah, let's frame this. So this is bully in chief, Jonathan Brader, who's creating all these edicts to the clerks, threatening them, saying, don't you let anybody else look at your machines. If you do, you're in violation of law, and we're going to indict you, which is what he did with Adams Township clerk Stephanie Scott. So it's a big threat. And so he's been threatening all these clerks. And that's how he got the indictment against the attorney, Stephanie Lambert, and clerk Scott, was going off and playing and bullying, issuing a statement during his grand jury testimony that he had the authority to go off and enforce the law, which he's asserting that his edicts are the actual law. And in this clip, what you'll find out is that he's called out on what the actual statute says. So go ahead and play the clip.
Very reminiscent of all the COVID edicts from governors. Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go.
I'm simply asking him if there is any law that he can point to that expressly prohibits. That's the only question.
Are you aware of an express prohibition that says an election clerk cannot bring someone else in?
Not that I'm aware of, Your Honor.
There we go.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So he's not aware of any statute, but he's going to go off and enforce it as if it is statute. I've seen the letters the threatening letters he sent to clerks. The clerks, he's just trying to intimidate them. I mean, they sent special agents over to my house to go off and try to intimidate me as well. But some people like Stephanie Lambert and Stephanie Scott are just standing up and say, talk to the hand. We're going to talk about what actually is in law. We're going to testify to the truth. I'm going to do my duties. I'm going to do my responsibility, and we'll see you in court. And that's what's happening now.
So this guy just admitted in front of a judge, just so the audio was really terrible on that, folks. But basically, he was asked if there was a statute that upheld his edict. And he had to admit in court, when it's right there in front of a judge, no.
Yep. Well, to put a little bit of inside baseball on this, what is in where he does try to derive that authority is that in the contract between the state of Michigan and the electronic voting system vendors, they have what's known as an illusory provision in their contract. And an illusory provision is a provision of the contract that prevents a client from determining whether or not the vendor is in compliance with the contract. Courts, whenever they're have an issue with such provisions brought up to them in a court of law, they'll immediately dismiss provisions like that because they essentially prohibit the ability to see whether or not the vendor is in compliance with the law. So he's referring to an illusory provision of a contract that the state has with these vendors, which is completely bogus. Dominion, ES&S, Hart, InterCivic, they all have these provisions that is attempted to prevent the sort of activities that that Stephanie Scott and Stephanie Lambert engaged in. And those provisions have been found time and time again to be null and void because their whole purpose is to prevent transparency on the contract.
Well, so is there intellectual property crap? You know, they've got these simple adding machines that are voting machines, but you can't look under the hood because it's proprietary. Give me a break. I mean, it's like you stick an Iowa basics test into a reader and it spits out numbers. None of this stuff is like super secret, amazing intellectual property. I mean, it just isn't. And they act like it is. We've got
in the age of Common Core math, you know, that is a secret art. You know, nowadays, just adding together.
Well, here we've got clip number 2. Okay, right? This is clip number 2. Testifies there's no provision that requires VTSL lab court order or licensed vendor to access the tabulators.
Yeah, that's the provision that's found in their contract, by the way.
Okay.
Mr. Waiter, earlier I handed you a copy of the code 168932. Do you have that?
So the lawyer's saying earlier I handed you this copy of this code. Do you have that?
And that's the law that was used to indict that's Stephanie's.
Okay.
Is there any provision in this statute?
Is there any provision in this statute
that requires Is there any provision in that statute that requires a VTSL lab, a court order, or licensed vendor to access?
That requires a VTSL lab, court order, licensed vendor to access the tabulators.
Voting system test laboratory? Yes.
That is not referenced expressly in the statute.
That is not referenced.
Nope. That won't stop him from asserting it, though, in his letters.
No.
So everything he put in his letters were simply edicts made up by him.
Yes. Yep. And he makes it as if he's a lawyer, right? But he's only licensed to practice law in New York, not in Michigan. And just so you guys know, background on Jonathan Brader is that he's a former chairperson of the of ERIC, which is that consortium of states that's supposedly trying to that was created to clean up our voter rolls. It's done the exact opposite.
Yes.
And also they had to reschedule a lot of their court hearings multiple times because he was busy talking to the Grey Poupon crowd out at Martha's Vineyard. And so there's this guy's connected up at the senior levels of the Democratic Party. And I'm sure he's just one of the soldiers obeying the marching orders that he's given.
Well, interestingly, he performed very poorly there in court. You know, he's sitting there looking through these things like he just doesn't know, like he doesn't know. And then he looks through it. Oh, I guess not. After I issued edicts about these things.
Yeah. Kind of reminded me of the secretary in Ferris Bueller's Day Off where she's just shuffling papers.
Yes, exactly. Folks, this is wild. I mean, are you all out there in my audience? Are you all picking up what's going on here? Are y'all getting this? I mean, we basically have edicts being created by somebody. Then he has to go to court after they're trying to take citizens of Michigan to court, an election clerk, an attorney. They're trying to run them through court. And then everything that they're purported to be breaking the law on aren't even laws, okay, as it gets found in court. Additionally, you have a Secretary of State, her attorney, basically saying that, well, just sue us. We're shredding the Constitution. And if somebody wants to bring a case against us, that's what all those clips are describing to you. Or, you know, it's just nuts. You know, do y'all realize that any law that is repugnant to the Constitution of your state or the United States Constitution is not a law? It's not a law. Also, you have to pass laws. Okay, you guys remember Schoolhouse Rocks? I'm just a bill up on Capitol Hill. I'm only a bill, right? You're a bill, okay? And how does a bill become a law? It has to pass two specific bodies and get signed by whom? Answer in the chat if you've got this, please. Okay. All right.
It's funny you brought that up. When I was in the Michigan Senate, we used to have someone dressed up as the bill in our parade. So we had a costume for the bill. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Good little Schoolhouse Rocks. I want to see the first person who gets this in the chat and actually gets all three right answers. Okay. Rainmaker got Senate in the House, but then somebody else has to sign it, Rainmaker. Somebody else has to sign it. The what branch? Okay. So I've got like signed by president. That's part of the branch, but I'm looking for the branch because in the state at state level, that's not the case, because the president doesn't need to sign those laws. Okay. So let's go on now. Since we've covered that, let's talk about let's see, this issue right here. Okay. Now, I've got this one too. What was this one again?
That was the grand jury statement. So when he made when you saw those clips,
yes,
that what he said in the clips contradicted what he said in his grand jury statements that led to the indictments of the Stephanies.
Got it.
So that's the background, guys. Let me put it this way: we show the receipts when we make an assertion that the guy committed perjury. We show you the receipts. These guys are lying through their teeth, and we got meddling kids all over the country now who are very good at gathering evidence and sharing evidence, like Neil, and these guys can't hide for long.
Yeah. So there's his grand jury. So he's perjuring himself. It's wild. I always look back though too. I mean, if you remember what took place in Arizona, and I keep thinking Richer, but it wasn't Richer. There was the other guy on stand who perjured himself from one day to the next on stand down there in the Kerry Lake trial. I mean, it was literally from one day to the next. He perjured
Probably
himself.
one of the Maricopa County commissioners.
Yes, and he never got in trouble for that. One of my audience members will remember his name here. I'll see it, but let's move on to this one. So, Representative DeBoyer has been cleared to subpoena top government officials, including Attorney General Dana Nessel. So this is all over the elections procedures manual, correct?
Well, it relates to that. In this particular instance, it was dealing with campaign finance law violations, and the Attorney General and her paramour, her partner, being the recipient of some of those grants, if you will. And so they were issuing subpoenas about what did she do or what didn't she do regarding the campaign finance law violations that have been sent forward. But what you'll see here, and the way I'd like to frame this, is that you saw one specific instance of the Michigan Secretary of State and the Director of Michigan Elections, Jonathan Brader, taking a statute, that MCL 168.932, acting as if it said something that it doesn't actually say, and using that to bully clerks into certain actions. Against that backdrop, we've got over 7 different courts that have found that the Secretary of State has issued unlawful directives to local clerks. And so the next stage on this gets into the idea that we've got this new House majority that came in 2024. And one of the very interesting things that they did right out of the gates is that they granted permanent subpoena authority to the Michigan House Oversight Committee, chaired by Representative Jay DeBoyer. Now, Jay DeBoyer is a former county clerk in St. Clair County, Michigan, and the chair of the Michigan House Election Integrity Committee is Rochelle Smith. She's a former local township clerk. And so we've got a couple of folks that had to sit through all the nonsense of the previous 4 years that said enough is enough. We're getting to the bottom of what these guys are actually doing. And one of their first acts that they did is that they asked nicely, and they said, we'd like to see all the training materials you're using to conduct elections and instruct our clerks on how to conduct elections. And they said pretty much talk to the hand, or they gave them a bunch of token documents that was not the complete set of documents. And they said, no, you have a tendency to issue unlawful directives. We want to see it all and make sure you're following the law, because obviously the Supreme Court's not doing their job. Law enforcement's not doing their job. The Attorney General's not doing their job. So we're going to have to step in and make sure you're following the law. We're going to use our subpoena authority if you don't comply. Well, they didn't comply, so they used the subpoena authority, and then they refused to fully comply with the subpoena. And so that led to court filing, where the Michigan House actually filed a lawsuit against Jocelyn Benson, compelling her to disclose the missing information. And preliminary indications are that they're free to go off and do that. And Jocelyn Benson has now been, and other targets of subpoena now have to comply with these legislative subpoenas, which for you and me is a big duh moment, right? I mean, they already had that authority. They should have. It shouldn't have been a matter of requiring a court to come in and tell them to go off and do what the law already says that they're supposed to do. But that's where we're at.
You mentioned an interesting word, something I thought of when you said that. You talked about oversight. Now, I find this fascinating because what we're looking for is oversight of a constitutionally protected act for the citizens, that of the right to vote in a free and fair manner. And if you look on the federal level right now, the Democrats in Congress are very concerned about oversight, but not of anything affecting American citizens. They're actually concerned about oversight about alligator Alcatraz and what's going on with criminal illegal aliens. It really tells you where their priorities are when they are willing to go all in on criminal illegal aliens, fly down to El Salvador, have cocktails with Maryland Man. Yet when something like this, a constitutionally protected right that's being violated through unconstitutional edicts, not even laws, but guidance, they're unconcerned about that.
Yeah, there's a common theme though, right? I mean, this is a case where at the state level, you've got a Michigan Secretary of State that says she only follows the laws that she agrees with.
Yes.
Right. And so in other words, she's got a separate agenda from the Constitution. And you're seeing the same thing happening up at the federal level.
Yes.
These people have a separate agenda than the Constitution. When they say we the people in the preamble of the Constitution, those are American citizens. That's not everybody else in the world. That's American citizens. And what they obviously have started to do is forget all that scope. It's our focus is on what's best for us. And if that means we look out for the quote unquote rights of illegals versus American citizens, that's what we're going to go off and do. Well, now, as you know, the key theme for this podcast is I think the accountability phase has finally begun. And so my hope is that these same people that are throwing away the Constitution, throwing away their oaths of office at the federal level are going to finally be held accountable for their actions.
Yes. Well, we can't do an election accountability stream without mentioning my favorite election integrity advocate. That's Mike Lindell at mypillow.com. Folks, this is it. Sunday it ends. $49.98, any color, any size. Giza sheets, the greatest sheets you will ever own. Donald Trump's favorite product. The sheets that are so dangerous you might not want to get out of bed because you're so comfortable. I love that product. But any color, any size at $49.98, that's like 60-70% off regular price on the Giza sheets. Go get yourself some. The slippers, there's also the free digital gifts. And look at this leather protected for only $5. So go check it out, mypillow.com/lumberjack, or call the 800 number at 1-800-568-2865. I always tell people to call the 800 number because then you're giving those home operators work. So, I mean, that's what I always say.
Well, actually, that's a good segue to something else that I think is important. A lot of your listeners are probably saying, well, what can I do right now? They're sitting there saying, okay, I'm seeing some hope. Maybe I'm starting to get a little bit of the hopium in me. I'm ready to give you guys the benefit of the doubt. We're heading in the right direction, but what can I do? Well, that's where Mike Lindell can help out as well. If you go to lindellplan.com, up on his website, and I've worked with Mike to put this together here, we got a call to action. And you may recall that President Trump has signed a few executive orders. That was actually him signing it, not the auto pen. He actually signed these. And one was during his first term. It was Executive Order 13873. And what that did is call for enforcement of existing statute that prohibited the use of systems that had components from foreign adversaries like China. Well, guess what? 48% of the Dominion ImageCast precinct features components from China. They never should have been allowed into the country. So if you want to help us with the enforcement of that, we got letters requesting action steps be taken to ensure compliance with that. And then most recently in his second term, he issued Executive Order 14248. And the fact that I have got these numbers memorized scares the heck out of me. But if you go to that executive order, what you'll find out is that he's calling for a cleanup of the voter rolls, as well as improvements around that will expose what's going on with our electronic voting system. So All you have to do is go to lindellplan.com, go to call to action, and follow those steps. If you want to help out, that's something you can do tangibly to help President Trump get some action on his executive orders. And I just want to highlight a lot of what President Trump's asking for in these executive orders is just saying enforce the existing law. He's not going off and making up new laws. He's just saying, guys, these laws are already out there. About time we started enforcing them, and you can help him in that regard. And there's sample letters that you can send to our various voting system manufacturers, as well as the Election Assistance Commission and the National Association of Secretaries of State.
Yeah, no, these are all things that we're going to look at, securing elections in the future. There's just simple things that we can all do. And a lot of it too is applying pressure to your reps, both at the state level and the federal level. Trump's executive order needs to be codified into law. That's what really is necessary here.
Not all of it. I mean, a lot of these executive orders, if you'll notice, what they're asking for is enforce compliance with HAVA.
Understood.
Enforce compliance with NVRA. And if we just got those elements of it implemented the way that they should have been implemented, we'd be almost all the way there to help have secure elections, right?
Yes.
But we're not doing that. And I don't want to give them any excuse to wait on compliance with the EO. So I'm not going to wait for legislation to go off and kind of be a belts and suspenders legislation for stuff that we already have in statute. I want them to just act on it. No more excuses. Go off and comply.
Yes. I just want to see our Republican Congress and our Republican Senate actually back some of the more important issues that Trump is trying to get done, instead of just giving those issues lip service.
Yeah.
And we've consistently seen that. And so it would be really good to see them actually do that. So don't let
you know why they went for one big, beautiful bill as opposed to a bunch of smaller ones, right?
Yes.
To get them out of neutral and get them into first gear takes a lot of political capital, a lot of political will. And as much as I hate omnibus bills out of the gates, unfortunately, I think this was important.
It was almost the only way to do it. I mean, we had some grandstanders in the Republican Party like Massey and whatnot that were unwilling to even go along with this, and they would have been on single line bills. It would have been rough. And I don't know. I mean, I want us to go to single line bills. I really do, actually. But
it's tough. I mean, it really is. When I was in the legislature, I finally got to the point where I got into what I call the needle mover approach on it, and essentially says, all right, if a bill's not perfect, is it moving things in the right direction or in the wrong direction? And if I could, and I had a compass that I'd use, I think I got a copy of it somewhere on here. Yeah, that I used to pass around to all the lobbyists and stuff that said, hey, if it complies with all the tenets of this is what I told people when I ran for office that I would do. If it complies with this, I'm good. And so I'd like to see some of these guys get into the mode of in that needle mover, and one of the key, measurements around that needle, if you will, is around whether or not it's compliant with the Constitution or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a lot of sausage making. There's things that fall into bills that you don't want, but so much of the bill is such that you do want, and you know that it's your chance to get it through. It's just the way it is. Politics
is not easy. Yeah.
Not clean, folks. Anyways, folks, do me a favor. As you're leaving the stream, again, smash that like, drop a quick comment to help get it out there. But that's what's going on in Michigan today. We've got some big things taking place, and we're really hoping to see some justice served, both in terms of these subpoenas and then also in the case of indictments. I mean, that's I think that's really what we want, and we want to see that accountability. Scale of 1 to 10, Patrick, how confident are you that we're going to see some indictments?
9.
9. Wow. And you're a little black-pilled at this point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm definitely red-pilled. Times my wife and I wish we were in blue pill land so we can enjoy life, but it's now I think by the end of this year, we're going to see, in particular in September and October, I'm looking forward to a indictment palooza.
Yeah. September. This is interestingly September. I actually had David Clements on the show, and that's when he said we should be looking for indictments with September. So you're right, kind of in that same time frame. Folks, answer in the chat, red pill, blue pill, which one do you want? I mean, blue pill, you can just live in oblivion. You can live happy. Ignorance is bliss, they say. Red pill, there's no going back, if you remember.
So either Professor Clements and I are big Earth, Wind, and Fire fans, or something big is going to be happening in September.
Yes. So, we'll keep you updated on these things as they progress along. I'll stay in touch with Patrick, see how things are moving along in the state of Michigan. I mean, there's other states where big things need to happen. Pennsylvania is another one. My home state of Minnesota. I mean, we have a lot of problems here. I mean, if you haven't been following, I mean, we've got hundreds of millions of dollars in fraud. Our governor, I can't even believe he was on the ticket for vice president of the United States of America. It's absolutely wild. Democrats always fail upward. Remember that?
Yeah.
The bigger losers they are, the bigger mistakes they make, the more likely they are to be promoted. So thanks for joining us today on this show. Lumberjack Logic. We'll see you on the next episode, folks. Remember, keep the faith, keep fighting the good fight. All right.